Hi, everyone. We are here with Cantor Rosalie Will, who will be joining us at Temple Sinai this coming weekend for a weekend in residence. We are very lucky to have her with us as we celebrate the Hanukkah holiday. So we just like to give the congregation an opportunity to get to know her before her visit. So thank you for joining us, Cantor Will. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. And I'm looking forward to being with you all. Um, I usually say I'm from St. Louis. I'm a Midwestern girl. My family's from Northern California. Before that, I moved to St. Louis when I was 8, and spent most of my teen years in St. Louis. And my background is sort of a typical Reform Jew in that my parents were always really active in their Reform communities. My sister went to URJ Camp Swig in Northern California. I grew up at Goldman Union Camp, the URJ Reform Movement Camp in Zionsville, was active in NIFTY in my youth group, sang in the junior choir at my temple. And really much of my formative experience was as a sort of active young adult Reform Jew, really focused on singing, both in my synagogue, in choir, leading services with my clergy, and as a song leader, which was really sort of the core of who I am as a song leader in NIFTY and at camp and later at the URJ through my years in college and beyond. So I'm a sort of a good youth song leading kind of Reform Jewish kid that was my whole world's growing up.
That's wonderful. I actually went to Camp Swig also, and you don't hear about as many people, who had gone to Swig anymore since it closed. Right. So it's nice to hear
and
that.
It's now Newman, right?
Yeah, it's now Newman. Glad to hear about your sister going there, and I think your camp background will bring something really special to our temple because we're always encouraging our youth to go to the camps as well. It's great. Can you tell the congregation a little bit more about your cantorial style? I know you said that you've got the song leader feel.
Sure. Most of the sort of impetus for me to become a cantor, my sister's a rabbi and her husband's a rabbi, a lot of rabbis in my family, was a real commitment to congregational singing. Not necessarily only in a sort of camp style in terms of repertoire, but a sense of elevating the congregational voice, of making worship particularly feel egalitarian, not necessarily in terms of gender, but that we all are responsible for and we all give voice to our own prayer. And so the way I approach my cantorial work is of finding ways for people to access their own sense of whatever it is, their place in the world, their understanding of themselves in relation to others, their desire to sort of figure out how they are in the world and how they want to be. I see my call as a cantor to find ways for people to voice that. Doesn't mean everyone has to sing everything all the time, but that the congregation really feels a part of crafting the experience as it happens and not necessarily as passive observers to an experience that's just been given to them. I see my role as often as a curator of experiences as much as a leader of them. And I do think that comes from my background in camp, a sense of trying to create a sense of whole and a unity around congregational singing, but also that each individual has their own voice and that every voice matters. It matters that you're here. It matters that you're engaged in worship in some way. So my training at HUC, I ran the gamut of traditional Chazanut, which I also love, the traditional prayer chant, all of the sacred art music. My background is as a classical Reform Jew. I grew up in a very classical congregation, so much of the classical repertoire means a lot to me as well. So I think that my musical sort of background is fairly diverse, but I really focus on how can the congregation feel the sense of prayer happening to them as individuals, and I'm just a facilitator of that experience.
That sounds great. I will say that as someone who has really no singing ability, the song sessions at NIFTY and at camp were some of the best memories of my life. So I really value, a cantor who's able to bring everybody in and share the musical experience together wherever you are as a singer. Now, can you share some of your favorite Jewish musical traditions?
I was thinking about this past weekend, actually, I was at my nephew, who's a rabbinical student, really runs in our family. He and his fiance, also a rabbinical student, got married in Norfolk, Virginia, this past weekend. And I was there, and they asked me to lead the Tish. And a Tish isn't as sort of common in Reform circles, though I've been to some, and I've led a few as well, which is really a gathering of all of the participants in the wedding. Some in more traditional circles, it's divided by gender. Sometimes it's text study, but it's actually before the chuppah and before the ketubah signing. People get together to sing and dance. A tish also comes from the traditional table singing you might have at Shabbat after you finish your meal to sort of deepen and lengthen the Shabbat experience. You would sing at the table, the tish. Well, there's a tish at a wedding, and my nephew and his bride asked me to lead this tish, and it was wonderful. And it just reminded me how great it was. One, it was 40 minutes of singing, dancing. A few friends were asked to give very short divrei Torah, or just sort of words of blessing to the couple. They were there together. People sang. We sang Hebrew songs. We sang some secular and some sort of Americana. And it really elevated the joy of the experience. So when we went into the chuppah, everyone was already felt connected, felt one. You know, you often go to a wedding and you sit and you sort of observe what happens, and it's joyful and it's meaningful, but you're an observer. And the beauty of the tish was everyone was singing and dancing in circles, and families beginning to mingle and clapping, and just a sense of before the party and the band and that kind of joy, a sense of how wonderful it is when two beloveds find each other, and that we sing when we do that. We sing. Again, you don't have to have a great voice. You don't have to sing every word to every song, but we express ourselves with our bodies and with our spirits. And the Tish really did that. So I think a Tish is like an underrated, sort of a forgotten part of who we are. And it made the whole wedding. I mean, in the sanctuary, there was much more sort of amen and joy because we'd had this chance to sing together. So I would say that's right now. I'm into the Tish.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And can you share with us what you'll be bringing to Temple Sinai during your weekend in residence?
Sure. I'll be bringing some sort of live and in practice, some of the conversations that I've had the great privilege over the past few years to have with many of you online and some of our Zoom sessions and learning. Both a chance, hopefully, to really sing and be together in community, but also both in the worship that I'll lead and the sort of engagement that we'll do together, as well as the conversation about how to enhance what already is the rich musical tradition of Temple Sinai, to enhance the minhagim, the traditions, the melodies that you love, the ways that you worship and experience prayer, how to enhance what already is a part of your community, but also how to begin to integrate and to think about where we can widen that circle, both in terms of the diversity of music that can tell our sacred stories that we often think of as must be like new and somehow like newfangled or radical. Much of the richness of our musical tradition is actually quite old. We just don't experience it because in certain communities, depending on where we are in the country, we just do what we do. Lots of things that feel new are actually decades, generations, centuries old. So how do we begin to weave a broader story of who we are as a people through song, through music, and how that can also then open doorways to people whose experiences are different than ours. So we're hopefully going to be able to talk about that a little more in person, but also experience it through song, through conversation, through creating sacred prayer that hopefully provides just different doorways for people to experience new ways of thinking about music, prayer, and liturgy. So I'm looking forward to doing that in a bunch of different ways throughout my time in the weekend with you all.
Well, thank you so much. We can't wait to see you this coming weekend, and we look forward to singing with you.
I do too. I can't wait to be with you.